Hello, Kardec Radio. We're here at 4 o'clock Pacific time, 7 o'clock Eastern time on Sunday, February 3rd, 2019. All time zones in between and all time zones around the world. I want to thank everyone to being on our program for everyone's knowledge. Today is the Super Bowl. It's playing right now. So if anyone listens live, I commend you, but I will continue this. If you'd like to see this later, our talk today is on verse 20, chapter 20 in my book, How to Live Inner Peace Through Spiritism, is simplicity of habits, a very important aspect for us to cultivate, for us to be able to be successful, not only in our lives here on earth, to maintain and create inner peace and harmony so we can come out of this life a much better person, but also when we are in the spirit world. So why are we here? We are here for Spiritism. And Spiritism, you can go to my website, nwspiritism.com, click on Allan Kardec's picture, and it will take you to the EDI CEI bookstore. You can order his book or on Amazon.com. Spiritism was codified in the 1850s by Allan Kardec, and it tells us so much more. I mean, for those of you who've read the Bible, well, hello, Matthew. For those of you who've read the Bible, and there's things that are, the parables, at least for me, are, not easy to understand. Spiritism starts answering all those questions you had since you were probably a teenager. Why are we here? Why do good things happen to bad people? Bad things happen to good people. It answers so many questions. It tells us why we're on earth, what our target is, how the process works. It is just so much information that the spirit world is giving us. And why are they giving us? Because we are ready. If you look at, from the all the way from Moses, the Buddha, Confucius, Socrates, those people are in different cultures at different times, and they're telling them things that they can understand at that time, not beyond. So that's why some things in the Bible, the Old Testament, seem very cruel, even in the New Testament. But that's because the people weren't ready to hear them. Where Spiritism says love for all people, forgive, as the New Testament also said. So these things, and then now they're telling us much more. They're instead of the heaven being a bit fuzzy, do you go there? Do you be judged? Spiritism tells us we are in a multi-life process. No one is condemned to hell forever. No one goes to heaven and does nothing forever. As the spirits tell us in the Spirits book, if we went to heaven and we did nothing, that would be hell. Everything we're going through here is to train us to become more and more advanced, even in the spirit world. We're not when we go pass over from this physical body, that's just one little episode in our life, and we go to the spirit world to learn more, to educate ourselves. And then the reason we educate, just like we educate people here on earth, is for us to become productive at certain points in our life. That's very important for us, people around us, our loved ones. And that's why we're here on this earth. And earth is actually more of a campus where we learn to become mature souls instead of using our primitive emotions, hate, envy, selfishness, pride, all the things all of us have, and we still have. Well, all of us still have many remnants of that. We're supposed to replace that with faith and love and charity and kindness, honesty, all the good emotions. Not that the primitive emotions, they did their job when we were in a more primitive state. But now that we are in this world of atonement, and we're approaching the world of regeneration. The world of atonement is a world in which we live through life and we atone for things we did in past lives. The world of regeneration, we won't have that much of to atone to for, maybe some small things, but it would be more of a time of learning when we're on earth. Earth would be a much better, it'll be the paradise that all of us really want it to be. So again, please tell your friends about Kardec Radio. Tell your friends about nwspiritism.com. Have your friends join Kardec Radio, and I'll have your friends go on and do on my YouTube or my BitChute site, where I'll post this video and I post the other video about at least once a week on different aspects of Spiritism. So now let's talk about simplicity of habits. Now this is verse 20 from my book, How to Live Inner Peace Through Spiritism. And what I've done through in these this is the 20th week, right? 1 week I've done what one verse each makes. And these are very simple. So the whole words of the verse is 3 words: simplicity of habits. And so what does that mean? What did the spirit Andre Luis, when he dictated, when actually Chico Xavier psychographed this poem by communication with the spirit Andre Luis, what do they mean by simplicity of habits? So let's discuss that. To live simply is to exist within the basic needs we all have. Food and shelter is required. Spirit messengers add to that list: family and study. Family, because we were born into the world with support. As I've talked about before, we're not born here to some random family. Every time we come back, it's like, okay, you're just assigned this, these people, and we'll see what happens to you. No, everything. You cannot believe the amount of planning that goes on in the spirit world to decide our whole blueprint of life. Everything is planned out. Almost nothing is by chance. That's really a tough fact to intuitively put into yourself. But almost nothing is by chance that happens to us. So therefore, our family, we reread our family over and over again. Not all the time. Sometimes there's difference. Sometimes other family people come in. Sometimes there's family members that come in that have been against the family, but now they're here to reconcile. So there's, it's not a complete blanket statement by any method, right? By any means, but the family is important. And so most of the time we have been with that family before, and that's because they support us in our quest to become educated. And that structure is usually designed to mold us, that family structure, to mold us into better people before the character of our past lives we can intrude during our late teens. The spirit world tells us that when we are about 15 to 20, our true personality starts coming through. And that's an interesting thing, because when you look at families and you think, well, these personalities are pretty well together because they come from that family. Well, that's also, there's truth to that. Yes, there's genetic, variability and compatibility and so forth. But there's also the fact that these people were together because of the law of affinity in the spirit world, and they liked the same things. They were good the same way, and therefore that's why these people are usually the same. But sometimes you see a family was, the black sheep, that one person's different. Either is, they're just different. It doesn't mean they're bad, but they're different. Oh, sorry about that. So when that happens, that person is usually from not part of that family, is reincarnated over and over again, but because they're there for a reason, like I said before, to reconcile, etc. So, and now let's talk about study. Well, we study because we are put on earth to acquire the attributes we sorely need and to break down the flaws in our personality. Everything else is dross. It is the waste of the soil surrounding the precious metal, right? We, each one of us, are the diamond that must be polished. The events of physical life is the grinding stone. Anything which subtracts from reforming the black holes in ourself delays our spiritual progress. The Spirit Manual tells us this: the spiritual wealth acquired by means of arduous toil, a profound understanding, a victory over oneself, and an incessant effort is the only thing that will confer on the spirit a position of genuine superiority and lasting well beyond being the transformations imposed by the grave. And such a lofty achievement will only become possible after the spirit has surrendered completely to the Father and for the grandeur of the divine endeavor. Of course, individuals influenced by others may receive big salaries. However, we need to realize that this can change at any time, or that these assets can be transferred to someone else by the temporary holder. Nevertheless, when workers use their abilities selflessly for endeavors of the good and put the objectives of God's works above their personal whims, struggling, loving, suffering, and surrendering to Him, they will certainly acquire eternal and non-transferable gold. Emmanuel tells us a lot, and he tells us this truth. He tells us this truth that goes against everything that we have in our culture. What he's telling us is the time spent accumulating excess capital to enjoy transitory luxuries are not really a good investment when evaluated over multiple lives. Yes, one should reward oneself for making progress, and work must be accomplished to ensure a comfortable life for one's family. There's nothing wrong in that. But striving for material goods beyond a certain point becomes a distraction to the main purpose of life on this planet. As myself, as an example, I think back of the time I invested playing golf. The rounds I played, the hours at the driving range, and the equipment I bought all contributed to using up my free time on the weekends. And hi Rosalind, and on the weekends and the occasional weeknight, right? I use this time for myself to get away from work, from family, from stress. In reality, it could have been any sport, hobby, or pastime. It was all meant to take myself out of the drudges of the real world and let me concentrate on something I wanted and enjoyed. It was an escape. There's nothing inherently bad in my pursuit of a better handicap. It was more that I was single-minded. I didn't use the time spent on the course to really be with nature. I didn't have conversations with friends about the deeper meaning of life. And I didn't take the time to compare my dedication to the sport to my dedication for self-improvement. I could have and should have combined the two. I lost the opportunity to exercise my swing with the knowledge that perfection comes with practice and repetition. Instead of only using the dedication for golf, I should have employed the lessons I learned in other parts of my life too. And we've all known people who are very successful. And most of us who have been in large corporations and different companies, etc., we see people who are very successful and are very high up, right? The founders work very hard. They deserve all the money they have. They created that. But you also see this layer of executive management. Most of those people are there because they deserve it, because they work a lot, right? They work 40 hours is nothing. They'll work 60, 80 hours a week, always on the phone, always listening, always doing something. They get great rewards, mostly because they are just dedicated and they're that type A personality to succeed in whatever they're doing. But what does that do? If you look at that passion, right, that wanting to succeed, and just working so hard just for that money, or it may not be the money, this may be for the power or building something. There's good in that, right? Because there's dedication and focus, but they do that to the exception of everything else. That's why we have to be balanced. And how does that help you when you are in the spirit world or in your next life, accumulating so much money, so many goods, so many toys? Because I tell you, when you leave Earth, you leave with only one thing: what you've improved in your mind and your character. If you leave a poor person who couldn't even afford a funeral, but you have improved your character, you've made yourself a better person, you are victorious. If you leave this earth and you have millions or billions or whatever it is, houses, cars, boats, yachts, and yet you haven't really improved yourself, which I know I've done, right? I've been told that by the spirits. I've done exactly what I'm saying not to do for other people. So so don't think I'm trying to be holier than thou, because I know I've done that. If all you've done is accumulate more wealth, but you haven't improved yourself, you're a failure. And the spirits tell us over and over again, when people go into the spirit world, these people who are prime ministers or presidents or generals, and yet they'll be learning how to improve themselves from people who have been bank clerks or janitors or ditch diggers or construction workers or people that have gone through cobblers, right? People that have gone through life simply and tried to be faithful, tried to be honest, tried to be good, help their friends, not take advantage of other people. Those are the people who are victorious in day after day at work. And when they leave the earth, they are rewarded in heaven. And so when we start doing these other things, right? And like when let's say when I was at golf, instead of just being dedicated for golf, I should have thought about when I was on the course about the beauty of God's nature. I should have talked to my friends about spirituality. I should have used the fact that I would be at the driving range and practice, get my muscle memory, to also at the same time think about my mental memory and start rewiring my brain to say nice things about people, etc. This is the essence of simplicity, is reuse. Exercising my patience, the need for training, the installation of good habits, and analysis of past performance, all these things that need to become part of everyday life, not just utilized in one aspect. Another aspect of simplicity is to keep your life uncluttered. How many of us long for this? And yet, how difficult seems life demands numerous acquisitions. There's always one more thing we need to buy. As we build up a pile of possessions, we become responsible for them. They must be kept, maintained, and safeguarded. In our desire to have certain goods, which we are bombarded all the time, right? We it, advertising is such efficient propaganda, right? They know how to go deep into our minds and want and give us so that we have a yearning to get something new, right? To be part of what other people are doing. So it makes us focus our energies on earning and saving money so we may purchase what is being advertised to us. Now, the spirit Joanna notifies us where this will lead if we give into this. This is what she says, and she's so wise. Conventionally, those who scrimp and save will become wealthy. Almost always, however, they grow stingy by falling in love with their assets, thus becoming their prisoner. Consequently, there are systems that teach how to save, generating investments that produce profits and opportunities. Those who become rich this way live in constant anxiety due to the fluctuations of the exchange rate, the stock exchange, and the securities. They are poor in the higher sentiments and are victims of financial greed. Wealth per se is neither good nor bad. It depends on who uses it and how it is used. Wealth easily generates attachments and the fear of losing it. It is impoverishes others as it sleeps in the coffers of usury, allowing poverty to become widespread. So, what is she saying? She's saying that we become trapped by our material desires and experience stress in holding and growing wealth. Now, I don't think you can ever get away from this because even trying to save for your retirement, like I have been doing, it's stressful. But that's something we have to do that to a certain limit, right? And so, because I'm not saying rid of everything. By all means, we don't want to become a burden on other people, and we need to provide for our family and our children and all of that. But we can't let it. We can't let those scales balance us where that's everything, where we ignore everybody in our family and we just to get that wealth and keep it. And if it goes, it goes. It's part of your trial on earth. So what Joanna explains is those who are the true possessors of spiritual wealth are the best givers. They release themselves of excess and retain only that which is acquired. And don't be guilty about acquiring wealth through your hard work, right? Wealth acquired honestly and put to work helping others to be employed is the intended use of our capital on our earth, right? Stocks and bonds can be vehicles of good, creating companies and investments in the future. When Joanna refers to the coffers of usury, she's describing a sort of financial arbitrage. Not all the time. Sometimes this helps too, but a lot of times whereby large financial firms generate revenue merely by trading securities for profit only, not for building any real tangible asset or for yield by other forms of pure manipulation, which benefits no one except the instigators. You see that a lot on Wall Street. And in fact, you read articles on people who are young people are on Wall Street, and they say this is just a horrible job, and it just drains you of your morality. And it's so sad to see that, and I can see why you would get trapped into that lifestyle. It's not easy. We live in this culture with just all these diamonds waiting for us, of this luxury. If we just not listen to our conscience a little bit, we too can have that new car or whatever we want. This is why being on earth is such a good test for all of us, This is a hard exam to go through. Therefore, to be successful in accumulating wealth is certainly not detrimental. It is the obsession of wealth that is the danger, and the bad use of wealth, just to create more wealth, not to help people for themselves. That is what is negative. And the spirits has told us too is that what's the hardest trial on earth generally, right? It's to become rich, right? Rich or famous or whatever you want, because you have all these opportunities to act however you want to act. And there's no one around and say, no, you shouldn't act like that, right? A lot of times we need to get that little slap on the side of the head and say, that was the wrong thing to do. And the richer you are, the more you're given temptation. And I know I've felt at that, right? And this is why on this earth, I've been middle class the whole time, because they knew that, oh, if you make this guy rich, he's going to just do whatever he wants to. So I recognize that now. So unfortunately, though, this obsession to accumulate more, this has been built within us as a survival mechanism, and it was important at one time, and it's one that needs to be changed. It needs to be contained and eventually erased. But this was an important, primitive urge at one point. So, and then Joanna explains the cause of our obsession and its effect. This is what she says. The whole anthropological inheritance is rooted in the basic automatisms of physical survival in the struggle with other species. In foresight, by storing up goods that will ensure the continuation of life in procreation and the defense of offspring and property. To guarantee such things, humans have become bellicose and distrustful and have developed the preservation instinct, from the sharpening of their sense of smell to the intuitive perception of danger. Since these basic, indispensable needs are designed as part of their inner world, humans are involved in an ongoing struggle, often weaved of endless suffering because they lack reflection and the ability to distinguish between what is essential and what is superfluous. Imprisoned within the small circle of such needs, even as they become more educated, their level of values remain the same, not really transformed, their objectives and achievements. All of their accomplishments may be summed up in the psychological inferior principles of immediate results and fleeting significance. When everything is in place and abundant, they then fall prey to the fear of loss, of being usurped, and they dive headlong into the craze of wanting for more and more, so as to be protected against so-called uncertainties of fate and life. If they experience lack because they have not amassed as much as they would have liked in order to feel safe and secure, they become anxious. This is due to their mistaken notion about life and its goals. Of course, people cannot live without a minimum material resources, a dignified, social, and balanced existence. However, this minimum of resources is enough to meet and support other psychological higher values, which place individuals above the oscillating circumstances of having and not having. So, what is Joanna telling us? Is that we want to amass this because, oh, this could be taken away at any moment, right? And this is the key, what she says. This is due to their mistaken notion about life and its goals. What does she mean by that? Let's say you have gotten some wealth. In fact, there's been studies, very interesting studies, is they always ask, okay, how much more do you need to feel comfortable? And what they found out is generally people want 25% more. It doesn't make a difference if you had, say, $5,000, $100,000, 10 million, or 100 million. You always wanted 25% more because okay, if I lose, right, this will protect me more. But so that thought, we forget that we're on earth on this track. And if this destiny we have, is this going to teach us certain things? This destiny says, well, we're going to make you without really any resources for a period of 5 years, but you'll get out of that. No matter what we had saved before that destiny came up, somehow that would be gone. That's why, you save what you think is the minimum that you need, right, to be comfortable and not be a burden on others. But then to think that you're going to be safe and secure, right? No, Your life has a blueprint. Your life has a project plan set out. You're going to learn what you need to learn. And just as Jesus said, look at the birds, right? They go through life every day. We will get what we need. Believe me, you will not be out there unless it was in your blueprint, right? You will not starve to death, right? And unless it was meant that you were going to live in your car for a while, you will not live in your car. And if you do live in your car, that was due to what you need to learn. And it won't be forever because you can pull yourself out by making the right decisions that follow your conscience. This is why it's so important. And you should not worry about where you are in life right now. You should only worry, and you should not even be stressful, but you should only, I should say, focus and dedicate yourself to fixing this, to making this richer. Right? This is what we need to work on, because this is what, when you go back to spirit world, and if you improve your character and you rip out those primitive emotions and replace them with advanced, with love and charity and honesty, you will be victorious in this life. There will be no absolute, you will say, oh, I did the right thing. You will feel so good coming back victorious. And as the spirits tell us all the time, you'll be rewarded 100-fold for anything that you denied yourself in this life, in this physical life. So, thank you, Pamela. So hence, our quest for material satisfaction is embedded deep within us, and it must be eradicated through material existences. And I can tell you right now, I'm still not there, right? I look at my little tiny retirement savings, and I always look at them like, if I can just get 5% return, right, on this, and I'll have this much money. I'm still in it. And I am more relaxed if I lose something now, and I'll just spend less, right? I'm not as stressed as I used to be, but I still have those concerns, right? And therefore, absolutely, this material satisfaction is embedded deep, and it is in pursuit of simplicity that we arrive at the right mixture of possessions and life. The key point in Joanna's explanation is her sentence. I'll repeat this again. This is due to their mistaken notion of life and goals. She is telling us that our life, each one of your life's blueprint, was laid down before our birth, and our single-mindedness of amassing wealth will either be allowed or not, depending on the lessons we must go through. If we weren't destined to be wealthy, then at some point, whatever we thought we were going to keep forever, as I said before, will evaporate, and the lesson will proceed according to plan. Therefore, saving for a rainy day is prudent, absolutely, but storing away protection for multiple lifetimes, for family and beyond, is spitting against the wind. The spirit world, God, Jesus, will determine who gets what and at the correct time. Nothing you or I or anyone else can do anything to stop it. Thus, why swim against the tide, right? Why have these passionate, longings? Moderate your desires, knowing that, okay, I'm just going to sit and I'm not saying to be passive, but I'm going to enjoy life and take to heart what I'm supposed to learn, right? I'm going to moderate my desires. I'm going to plan ahead and be conservative, but beyond a certain point, any capital saved away will be useless, and the effort involved in gathering more is not worth the return on investment. The real return on investment is time spent would have had a larger return in spiritual reflection and personal betterment. That is the return on investment that we should all strive for. So after the money, we want money for what it can buy, right? What does it buy? It buys pleasure, right? And we need to guard ourselves against trying to get the excess of pleasure. This is only natural, right? After all, we work hard and we should play hard, right? To an extent, absolutely yes. So again, as I said before, we live in a world of propaganda. We are bombarded with messages to slip underneath our rational brain and connect to our feelings. And without a base of morality, a set of precepts which anchor our desires to the reality of our existence, we are prone to chase one illusion after another. It's tough. It's tough being human. But this is why we're on Earth, right? This is why the spirit world is this more comfortable area, especially when we've gone out of the lower zone and we're in, one of the levels of heaven. It's a comfortable existence. We don't have that kind of pain and suffering and, really stimuli to make us change our personality. We may really be nice people in any of the levels of heaven, but we're not there as a perfected person yet. So we're on Earth. And we live in this day and age designed to test our resistance. Spiritism has fully communicated via spiritist mediums that we live in an ultra-materialistic society, and that it is up to us to rebalance our lives and our culture to a more rational state of affairs. The Spirit Joanna exposes what is occurring to many of us at the present. This is what she says. In the relentless pursuit of pleasure, people go from one sensation to the next without realizing that the instability causes the anxiety responsible for the overwhelming suffering that threatens to plunge them into despair. Think about that. And you see this all the time in your friends, and you go, "Oh, I want this, and if I want this, it's going to make my life. I'm going to be good." But it's never satisfying, is it? It's like as a kid, if I just had that toy, I'd be happy. And then you hate that toy, and a week later, you move on to the next thing. I'll carry on what she says. Until they decide to choose legitimate values over those that they deem meaningful, but which are mere illusions, they will find it very hard to commit to a path that will bring about peace. Living under the demands of a machine that imposes real needs and predisposes them to imaginary and disturbing ones, people opt for the latter. These entail the sensations of the domineering ego, pressuring them to pursue the coarsest aspirations at the expense of the subtle, ennobling ones that thrive in selflessness, high-minded effort, self-denial, and the cultivation of inner life in the realm of the spirit over matter. The body should be regarded as a transitory instrument for the eternal being, a temporary sanctuary for the higher purpose of enabling the soul to evolve by means of the enlightening experience it affords in it the moral, spiritual, intellectual arenas, as well as by the practice of virtue. So, as usual, the Spirit John is so wise. And what we, by reading this, by listening to this, we recognize that our civilization is in a battle which one side is attempting to eradicate any semblance of a higher intelligence. We say it all the time. If you are religious or if you are spiritual, you are weak. It's a crutch. Religion's a crutch, right? I used to believe that. I'll fully confess to that. I used to, they're just using a crutch. No, I understand much better now after I've had planned actions that have happened to me. I understand now that no, they're not a crutch. They are actually the ladder that we need. So it's Gabriel. I wonder whether is licit to practice the kind of game of luck. I see no reason for that, why that's bad, right? You go play roulette at the casino. If you are just playing, let's say you're just playing poker or roulette or blackjack, whatever you want, and you know that you're not so absorbed in it, like, oh, I have to play this, I have to do this in order to get money for food for my family. If you're just playing with, okay, I'm going to spend, let's say, $1,000 or $100, and I'll play as long as it lasts. That's just it's just recreation. It's no different than going bowling or something like that. So I don't see anything wrong in that, as long as you are not obsessed with it, and you don't have to win, because we all know by anyone with mathematical ability that anything in the casinos or anything like that is that over the long run, you always lose. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so wealthy, right? So absolutely, no, I don't see anything bad about that, Gabriel. So, as I was saying before, it is really tough, right? Because we are looked down upon. And even talking to your friends, I'll talk to my friends and I'll give little hints. If they don't pick up the little hints, like, oh, I'm going to do a spiritist meeting. If they say, oh, what is spiritism? Then I'll start talking about it. But if they just look at me, then I leave it alone. It's tough because I know sometimes should I make a pest of myself? But no, I mean, everything I've seen with spiritism is if there's an opportunity, you leave a little hint or you leave a book, right? and you're trying to solve a problem with someone, you give this as a part of the solution, but you don't ever just sit there and pound that into them. That's for each person to pick up for themselves. So what this current culture is, right? This current culture of relative moralism, which I could go a whole program on how I think that is destructive. They're trying to encourage the idea of the absolute isolation of humankind, that we are mere organic beings brought forth by random acts of evolution, living in a physical world devoid of any feelings except what we manufacture. Their postulation is the old Epicurean philosophy that pleasure is the greatest good. Modern consumerism goes beyond that starting point and stresses that one should work hard for luxuries and only in comparison with the few chosen idols of extremely rich or famous people should you consider your own worth. And only by aping the truly grotesque way of living with large mansions, designer labels on practically everything, and retinues of faithful followers can one truly judge their place on earth. To achieve less is failure. Everything is measured in coin. Spiritism exposes this whole philosophy, this whole way of life, as a very dangerous mirage. Allan Kardec brought to us the third revelation. Of course, again, I will get this. Allan Kardec, the Spirits book. And you can find this book on my site, nwspiritism.com. You can click on his picture and you can go to the EDI-CEI bookstore, or you can get it on amazon.com. And also, as I say, every show, type in Allan Kardec, I'll put it right again, Allan Kardec, PDF, and you'll find his books for free. That's how I found it. Spiritism exposes this as a mirage. It says, you're not on earth to get rich, wear the best tennis shoes, have the best looking girlfriends or boyfriends or whatever. No, you're here to improve yourself. And not improve yourself by wearing tailored suits or having gold rings. This is what you're supposed to improve. And why do we want you to improve? Well, because you have work to do. You are going to be part and parcel of the higher spirit someday that will direct the evolution of whole planets. You will be a powerful high spirit, as powerful as what we can conceive as Jesus or God really doing. They talk to other primitive, peoples that you will lead. They will think you're on that level. But for you to have that much power and to be at that level, you've got to erase, you've got to take out all these negative, primitive emotions, hate, envy, jealousy, etc. And this is why being diving deep into these emotions by accumulating wealth, right? The accumulation of goods is a baggage that we can't be sent forward. It doesn't do anything for us to make us a better spirit in the future. When we accumulate too many physical goods, right? Material goods, all those goods, they disappear as we depart from this physical life. The years of self-indulgent luxuries earn us nothing for our spiritual ascent. And in Spiritism, they call that parking. And I know I've done that. I'm sure we've all done that for years. We've parked ourselves life after life. You fail the same things. You keep doing the same thing over. You try to accumulate goods. You try to cheat people to, be richer, right? You try to grab power, whatever it is, right? Manipulate. It's hard. And that's why sometimes that's why you'll go through hard times. And then all of a sudden the light will turn on. And you'll say, I didn't need that car. Actually, I'm happy. I'm happy with my husband and wife. I don't need to trade it in a newer model that makes more money or better looking or any of that. I'm happy just the way I am, with what I have. And I love my family and I like helping people. And then you start reinforcing that. And that state of mind doesn't disappear then when you go to the spirit world. And it doesn't disappear when you're in the womb of your next life, right, and your mother's in your next life. It keeps with you because your personality follows you from life after life. And you'll be more disposed. That's why you'll go up every life. And in spiritual ascendancy isn't like this straight line, right? It's more like it's like a hockey stick. You go, you go, you go, you go. And then finally a lesson just does it. And then you just like this, right? That's usually the way it works. So once we understand Spiritism and the certitude of immorality, and we know we're immortal souls, erases the overwhelming desire for all transitory possessions. It places in perspective the importance of material goods and pleasures. It allows us to gauge for ourselves when we need that little reward, and we always do, right? It's like, Gabriel said, I want to go gamble. There's nothing wrong in that, right? I want to have at least a nice car. Well, if you save for it and you work for it and you don't let it overcrowd everything else, there's nothing wrong in that, right? It places in perspective the importance of material good and pleasures. It allows us to gauge for ourselves what we need that little reward to recharge our batteries or that new acquisition only when it serves a real purpose. The fact of immortality and reincarnation clarifies our reason for being. It elevates our lives into a worthy pursuit. It provides us with incentive to love and assist others. Every up and down in life is there for a reason. Everything is of consequence, good and bad. Hence, our actions have real meaning and repercussions. The more we simplify our life and instill productive habits, the easier we shall sail through life. And the wonderment of the spirit realm awaiting us shall be even more astonishing than we could ever imagine. So, how do we instill simple habits? How do we get that, right? And this is what I go through in my book, right? Constantly is, okay, so what do they mean? And then how do we achieve that? And I tell you, and the more you start going through this and reading about Spiritism, not just my books, right? You can find my books on NW Spiritism on that right-hand corner, but books by Allan Kardec, Chico Xavier, just so many good books. Yvonne Pierre, Devaldo Franco. There's so many things for you to read, and whatever works for you and whatever style that you like, please pursue that. So, how do we instill simple habits? The Spirit Emmanuel spoke to us about habits in the book Thought and Life. This is what he says. Habit is the accumulation of mental reflexes whose function is to induce routine. We inherit thousands of years of repeated experiences, each one similar to the other. Up to now, we've been like a boat carried away by a river of habits to which we have offered no resistance. Therefore, with few exceptions, we have become consumers of other people's thoughts by the automatic reflex action of the mind. Consequently, we exaggerate our needs and refuse to adopt simple standards of living which can make our life easier. We then become defensive regarding our demands and cruel towards our neighbor. When we hurt that person, we hurt ourselves. This also causes us to create a complex mechanisms of caution and distrust that reaches beyond the need of self-preservation. We become passionately possessive, thus creating mental reflexes of egotism, pride, and fear in a vain desire to elude divine laws. In most instances, we act like inattentive and unfaithful workers who neglect the valuable resources which allow us to serve with dignity. Instead, depressed and disquieted, we bring suffering upon ourselves. How true is that, right? I'll carry on what he says. In general, the human race lives this recurring cycle of ignorance and does not want to counteract it. How true that is. We seek to deceive ourselves after birth, only to become completely disillusioned after death. Thus, we are imprisoned in the confines of an disillusion syndrome. Century after century, we return to tread the same road from where we were expected to go forward. However, we should not by any means disregard a constructive routine. Through it, people evolve in space and time to attain the resources that dignify their lives. Evolution demands that we develop new habits, that we detach ourselves from lower forms and walk towards the higher stages of existence. This is why we see in Christ a divine landmark of human renewal, a whole program of basic spiritual transformation. Without violence of any form, he altered the moral standards by which the earth had lived for several thousand years. He offered the practice of forgiveness to replace systemic condemnation and replace the usual racism. He offered the concept of general brotherhood to uplift sadness and discouragement. He gave us the Beatitudes as a comfort to the afflicted and who know how to wait, and to the righteous who know how to suffer. Jesus' apostleship becomes a resplendent set of reflexes aimed at the redemption of the human way. He taught us the virtue of simplicity when he began his pilgrimage amongst humanity that originated in the manger. His death on the cross taught us serenity, patience, and belief in the resurrection and eternal life. So, as Manuel pointed out, we go through life after life in these habits, but then we just got to start slowly instilling these better habits. And the nice thing about it is they stick with us. They don't get broken down. It's like, well, we don't remember our previous lives. Well, yes, you don't remember, but you do have your conscience, which is telling you what you should be doing. Your conscience is improving. It's like that law library, right? You've got a set of laws, right? But that law library is telling you all the little gray areas, everything you see and happen to you. And you have your instinct. And your instinct goes, well, used to be 5 lives ago, your instinct was to hoard whatever you could and kill anyone you could to, go in that village and kill everybody and take their grain. Now your instinct is, oh, I hope they have enough grain to live, right? And that's kind of a with your conscious and instinct combined, that is your path of progress. And that's why when we see other people who will just take what they want, that someday they're going to be really good people, but they're in that immature point where they just take what they want because it's worked in the past and they haven't learned anything yet. That doesn't mean they shouldn't be in jail or punished, but I'm saying it lets you forgive them because you understand where they are. They still need to be educated, but you should never hate someone like that. You just say, oh, okay, well, they got a long road ahead of them, right? That's what I usually say. They're not going to enjoy the next couple of lives, maybe, but they'll learn. I've been there. So, as Emmanuel points out, our habits are the culmination of many past lives. They've served us well in our quest for survival on a primitive planet, where the rules was to kill or be killed. But now, on a planet of atonement, where in our lives we must repair past mistakes and learn the lesson provided us, we need to begin to cast off the hoarding instinct and other tribal attributes. The earth is designed to be destined, I should say, to be a planet of regeneration where hate, envy, and injustice is greatly reduced. To be allowed to live future lives in this paradise, we must earn our entrance. Retooling our habits is a part of the price. There's no free lunch here. We have to earn. We have to demonstrate our betterment, right? We have to demonstrate our knowledge. That's why one of the verses to study, right? This one, simplicity of habits, but we have to earn this. A good place to start is to make a habit of forgiveness. Let the old way of holding tight to perceived slights and insults free and fast forward to deleting memories that promote primitive emotions. Boy, that was a tough one for me. And I think I'm almost there yet, but boy, I would just hold on. It's like, I can't deal with that, and I would think how I could get back, right? What a waste of time. What a waste of effort. And I tell you, if you can forgive, that doesn't mean you have to be friends with someone. Let's say you have someone, or family that just are horrible to you. It doesn't mean you have to keep being there and having, horrible things happen to you. You can remove yourself, right? But you don't think about it. Think how you want revenge. If you can get there and you can forgive, your stress will be greatly reduced. The spirit world will concern itself with teaching any transgressors. You have better mountains to conquer. Now, I want to say that again. You don't have to teach that person a lesson who did something bad to you. You don't have to you don't have to say, oh, I got away with it. They weren't arrested. You don't have to worry about that. Everything they do is tracked. They will not get away from that. They will atone for that. They will learn. You don't have to be the judge and jury. Next, to get to simplicity of habits, determine what you really need, what possessions you actually need, not what you desire. Slim down to what is absolutely necessary if possible, or at least a close approximation. Don't do it all in one day, right? Don't go. Just kind of get rid of what you think. See how you feel. Did you need that? It's like the old thing with moving, right? And you have boxes. And if you haven't looked at that box for a year, why even look at it? Just toss it. Right? You don't need that box, or give it to Goodwill or whatever, charity you can, because you didn't need that. Next, work yourself free of debt. Oh, Alicia Ramos, hi. Work yourself free of debt. Accept the obligatory house mortgage, of course, which provides shelter. There's some debt you're going to need. But there is no reason to be anxious about paying off debt for the accumulation of luxuries you don't need. Living within your means is the straightest path to harmony. I'll say that again. Living within your means is the straightest path to harmony. We are so subjected to say, just put this on your credit card. Well, look, don't. Now, if you have a credit card, pay it off every month or use cash, but live within your means, because the means that you have today, that was your destiny at this point in your life. And I can probably guarantee pretty well that it says, oh no, we're going to give this person this amount of means, but they can put as much as they want on that credit card. I don't think that is what the spirit world had in mind. All you're going to do is give yourself more stress, and then you're going to be so stressed, you're not going to learn the lessons that are presented to you. You're not going to take the opportunities that are presented to you in your life as it goes from class to class, from trial to trial. So learn to enjoy the simple things, your family, your friends, studying, gardening, helping the community. Once you begin to ignore the calls for more and more and more and turn your focus inward to yourself, how you can improve yourself, and while again looking outward, how you can help others, you start to enjoy the natural pleasures of life. Beauty in nature and in people becomes apparent. You can detect the plans of the spirit world in all aspects of life. It is an apparent contradiction that to prioritize improving yourself, you actually become more awake and aware of the outside world. But it's true. As you shed your negative emotions, which cloud your thoughts, your brain becomes sharper and your sight extended. You begin to see. Oh, hello. Well, good morning, all Philippines. You begin to see with your senses and your mind the realization that Earth is a school where we are placed to improve our character, and thus everything around us has been prepared for edification. Opens our eyes. We see the world more clearly. We understand the reason for bad behavior and the necessity to encourage good behavior. The belongings that enticed us before becomes unimportant, and the yearning for temporary luxury turns into indifference. The earth was made for us. Our physical bodies were created and evolved to hold our spirits. That's why it's here. Earth is the place where we are supposed to make great strides in beautifying our personality. Our future as a bright angel is waiting. So I want to thank everyone for being part of our program today. I want to remind everyone, please tell your friends about Kardec Radio. There's all sorts of stuff. Kardec Radio Facebook page. Kardec Radio itself is an app, and you can listen to Spiritist messages and lectures and things like this. As I upload, when I'm done, I will take this and I'll upload the audio to to Kardec Radio, and also to my YouTube and BitChute channel. You can also go to my YouTube channel and BitChute and subscribe, and I will upload this Facebook streaming to both channels. So you can go to my site, nwspiritism.com. Tell your friends about it. Look at that when you've got questions, when you're bored. And again, in Kardec Radio, 24 hours a day, you can load that on your iOS or your Android device. It's a free app. It's, when at night, I'll listen to it also. And it's excellent. It's all in English. Oh, hello, Nora. Oh, so these things will help you. Read the Spiritist book. This is where this is where I started. I think this is where everyone starts. Now, I do have Spiritism 101, the Third Revelation. You can buy that on Amazon and Kindle books, like 99 cents. You can also go to my Facebook page. You can find a link to the Facebook page, Spiritism, the Spirit World Around Us. If you go to the file section, I download it as a PDF, so you can get a PDF, or you can do the contact me on my page and say, can I get the PDF, and I'll mail it to you, so it won't cost you anything. They'll just give you an introduction, but you can find all these things, all these wonderful helps to understand the world around us and why we're here and how you can help other people. And I want to say, God bless everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, and please, keep your comments coming in and ask me questions. I have so many people email me, contact me, and I'll be happy to help anyone I can. If you're in a city, town without a spiritist group, please start one, right? Put put that little notice up in the library or the bookstore and start getting people together. Now I know there's people here that have done that, right? And so the more we can give Spiritism to the world, because it's a doctrine. It's the future is where other religions will say, yes, okay, we will adopt those doctrines in the whole world. Once we know that karma is real, right? Why we're here, people will start becoming nicer and better people. God bless everybody, and I hope you have a wonderful time for the rest of your weekend. And I will see you next week. God bless you all.